This is Alter Echo. I have no clue what this game is. I haven't even heard of it. Gene bought it just because it was shiny. He's been trying to get me to review it for a while.
You want to play now?
When you asked me the first time today, what did I say?
Yes.
And the second time?
Yes again.
I will play it, not now though.
You want to play now?
Don't you dare.
You want to play now? You want to play now? How about now?
I hate you so much.
Jose, how about now? No!
So I finally decided...
Are you going to review it?
Alter Echo is a third-person action game, published by THQ and developed by Outrage Games. If you haven't heard of Outrage Games, well, they only made about 4 games. They were part of another company called Parallax Software, who worked on the Descent series until it was split into 2 companies, Outrage Games, and another company known as Dilation Incorporated, aka the Saints Row guys. We start the game and we're greeted by this cutscene. Yeah, I didn't lower the volume. The game actually starts out like this, which is weird, since the rest of the game is actually audible. The intro is just telling us about how in the future, we have psychics called Shapers that can mend a material called Plast, which in turn can build weapons and buildings. On a distant planet, the world's greatest Shaper, Pavo, creates an even stronger Plast known as Echoplast. And, surprise, he went batshit crazy. 3 Shapers known as Arana, Stome, and Nevin are on their way to stop him when Pavo shoots their ship down. Nevin falls unconscious and he wakes up in an unfamiliar area wearing a weird suit and wielding a sword. A disembodied voice reveals to have saved him and then promptly puts him through combat training. Yep, this is the tutorial to get you used to the controls in combat, which I have to actually say is quite fluid and pretty good. This also teaches about some of the obstacles and enemies you'll face throughout the game. The trap node obstacle is the most common one. If you find a blocked path, a trap node is usually keeping it shut. Trap nodes are mostly padding to have the game seem longer. You have to destroy trap nodes in order to move on, but they're invulnerable to attacks until you destroy a certain amount of enemies. This gets to be tedious to say the least. Soon the voice tells Nevin that the suit is Echoplast, made from its flesh. Now just think about wearing someone's flesh, or using it as a weapon, or as a building, or anything. If you're grossed out by this, welcome to the club. We have jackets. So yeah, the voice is the Echoplast, which has its own brain that's hidden deep underground. Eventually, the Echoplast, also known as Echo, shows that the suit can alter its form. The first form is the gun form, which is as slow as a snail, but it can shoot enemies from far away and is used for turret sections. The last and only other form is stealth form, which... What the hell? Other than the weird dog-frog hybrid look, this form can pounce on enemies and special nodes to pass over some gorges. It can also use its tongue to grab enemies and pull them in close, but the most noticeable ability is, as the name suggests, to go into stealth mode by holding the block button. All the forms have a different type of block. In sword mode, you can block physical attacks, but you're weak to bullets. In gun mode, you can absorb bullets, and in abomination mode, you can sneak by lasers. Echo then leads Nevin to a master chamber that holds a master node, an object that Pavo uses to expand his powers across the world. Or Echo. Little confused here. Here, Pavo strips Nevin of his forms and summons a wave of enemies to stop him from freeing the master node. Now this is all relatively easy, mostly due to a certain gameplay mechanic. With the proper amount of energy, Nevin's suit allows him to control time with an ability known as time dilation. Now, is this a mechanic where the world and the enemies slow down, like in Blinks, which I did a video on last time and you probably should watch? No, it's a quick time event. Whenever you activate time dilation, you'll be taken to this screen. The premise is simple. Use the action buttons to travel from the start to all the enemy icons. The farther you travel, the more damage you deal. It's the same premise for the master node, but instead of enemies you have to hit all these icons. This mechanic not only appears for master nodes, but there are other nodes that allow you to create bridges and modify the environment. Now it's not too bad, but it does get repetitive. There's at least one of these in every section of the game. Echo then reveals to Nevin that his comrades are still alive, which prompts him to go find them. Now, most of Alter Echo's gameplay is a linear experience from going from one point to the next while having to solve puzzles, hitting switches, and of course killing enemies. I actually didn't mind the enemies. There's a decent variety of them, and eventually they become elite versions. These versions are of course stronger and harder to kill, but not only that, they can actually block repetitive attacks. This means you have to change from light to heavy attacks constantly, which is a good thing since combos increase points that get stored in your suit. Some enemies are also only vulnerable to specific forms of attack, and you have to switch between enemies because if you focus too much on one, this could happen. Yep, you get paralyzed for a few seconds with no way out other than to either wait for your AI partner like Arana to hit the enemies to lose their focus. If this happens when you're surrounded, you're basically dead. Though that's not a bad thing, the game keeps your focus with the fluid combat and interesting enemies, but there is something I do have to note. After saving a master node, you can spend the points in your suit in order to upgrade said suit. Upgrades range to increase health, to different guns, and to different swords that can do more damage. You can also purchase new combos, which are worthless. Seriously, you can get through the game by just button mashing. If I used a combo in the game, it was by pure accident. There's only one time you'll actually need a combo move, but I'll get to that later. After finding Arana and regaining the gun form, the two of them decide to go to a spaceport in order to get blueprints to build a ship. The reunion is then cut short by a gunship controlled by Pavo's own henchman, which is then promptly shot down.
Please going down, kid!
Nevin regains stealth form and he learns he needs to power the spaceport in order for it to be useful. Going through some more platforming, we start the beam that powers the spaceports but learn something is blocking the beam. And surprise, it's one of the henchmen, Kess, who is pissed about the gunship battle.
Think you're clever blasting my ship out of the air?
Yeah, felt pretty clever.
Okay, what? Bullshit! He shot it down! That's not clever! Whatever. Kess taunts us, saying she will stop us, and she does so by doing absolutely nothing. Seriously, she just hovers in place, and occasionally she puts obstacles that help us reach the switches that need to be activated. Actually, now would be a good time to talk about the characters. They're forgettable. Kess and Garam fit under the trope of extreme killer and dumbass. Arana's character isn't really explained or expanded. Hell, you don't find out anything about her unless you're paying attention to a certain cutscene. Even Pavo tries way too hard to be the villain. I mean, the dude just talks about his plan and talks and seriously, I don't want to put an end to his plans, I just want to kill him to shut him up. The only two characters I sorta like were Nevin and Stone. Nevin says some things to try be witty, but at times he sort of comes off like an asshole.
Who have parental issues?
As for Stone, his character just says stuff at random times. Right after fixing the beam, we find Stone where he joins us to find the blueprints. After finding them all, we head to the spaceport where he says,
Party time!
"Yeah, time for shit." Never mind. After this boss fight, Pavo decides to pull some Matrix bullshit, resulting in Echo teleporting Nevin to his brain. Apparently, Pavo has sent an army with his henchmen to destroy Echo's brain, who we have to stop. Nevin then battles one-on-one against Kess and Garam. Now, none of these bosses are actually hard. Pavo's battle just requires blocking until he's open encounter, and yeah, that's actually the same formula for most of the boss fights. Don't get me wrong, most of these fights aren't bad. The villains actually switch up their tactics, so it does make it a bit challenging. The only thing that bugs me is that the boss fights kinda drag on. There's a section where Pavo backs off and summons creatures to fight instead, and later he just summons spinning lasers. Garam's boss fight includes a part where you have to turn invisible, crawl up a side of a cliff, turn into gun form, and continuously shoot him until he moves in front. We then jump down and do the whole process again on a different part of the cliff. These parts just feel unnecessary. After beating Garam, we beat Kess, who monologues how we expect her to apologize for her crimes, and Nevin says what we're all thinking.
Not really.
Yeah! Screw her! Don't even know what evil stuff she did. She then disappears in a Star Trek beam similar to Garam. Echo then reveals to Nevin Pavo's evil plan, which is to shoot large tentacle missiles at other worlds to cover them in the Echoplast. That way, Pavo can control them. Or him. Nevin is then teleported up to the surface where he teams up with Arana once more to save Stone. Now before I move on, something's been bugging me quite a bit. Every so often after you do some platforming, the game cuts to a save screen and a loading screen. This happens a lot, but thankfully it is quick. The thing that bugs me is that it's a bit inconsistent. The game backtracks through some of the levels like this one, which I traveled with both Stone and Arana, though for some reason the level is cut in half with Arana, yet not with Stone. The majority of the level stays the same and there's only one or two minor changes. I just don't get it. Back to the story, Nevin reaches the top where Stone is still captured, and he decided to make the best of his situation.
When I was a kid, my father locked me in a closet, and it was a bad.
I didn't expect that. And then Arana is killed.
Arana died trying to help me.
Yeah, now I just feel bad for the guy. Let's go to Nevin, who has to fight the Shadow Pavos. And like any good movie fight against multiple enemies, they attack one at a time, but take turns. It's basically the same battle as before, but you can't run around the edges or the clones will shock you. Defeating Pavo has Nevin and Stone decide to take the offensive and stop his evil plans. The first thing they have to do is take out a shield generator protecting Pavo's lair. Some more decent platforming later, and the duo comes up to the generator, where its defenses disable Stone.
It was just a flesh wound.
Seriously? A Monty Python reference? They're not even taking the characters seriously anymore.
After a challenging boss fight with the generator, Nevin finally enters Pavo's lair, which has one of the most annoying sections in the game. In this part, you have to disable a shield in order to disable a trap node to move on. The way to do that is by tossing enemies into this beam that's powering the shield. Remember earlier I mentioned you really only need one combo move? This is where you need it. Seriously, if you do not have the push move, you're screwed. Even with the push move, it takes you so long to push enemies into the beam. Not only that, but there are multiple enemies that are constantly attacking you. This means there will be times when you get close to pushing an enemy in, but you have to stop in order to go regenerate your health at a health node. Thankfully, this is only one part that you have to do about 6 times. After this annoying part, we face against a giant tentacle boss that I seriously had no clue how to beat. One walkthrough later, and I found out I had to use a technique I had no idea I had. Apparently, you can use stealth mode, pounce on these enemies that are basically bombs, and switch to gun form, and boom, grenade ammo. After looking through some of my footage, the game did tell me about it, but it was just another maneuver I never needed to use. I'm serious, there wasn't a single time where the game required me to use this move until now. Whatever, we turn into a turn section and kill the damn thing. Now it's the final stand against Pavo, which has to be the worst boss battle of the entire game. It's a 3-parter. The first is just switching forms to block Pavo's attacks. Once he's resting, we use time dilation to cause some damage, and yes, the amount of attacks increase in quantity and the time dilation does get faster. Before we can deal the final blow, Pavo stops us, saying it won't be that easy. It then turns into the same boss battle we had with his shadow clones. The only difference is that Pavo has a Star Trek move to teleport behind you. Well, that's it. After dealing enough damage, the final part takes place, which is an epic game of volleyball. This was a stupid way to end the game. And I know Ocarina of Time had something similar, but Ocarina of Time started with the tennis match and just built up to this epic ending with a battle against the dark and ferocious Ganon. This is not Zelda. There was no build up. After hitting Pavo with the volleyball, Nevin deals the final blow. Overkill much.
I am free now. Free.
We're then left with this scene where Nevin takes off with Stone, followed by a cliffhanger ending showing everyone still alive and Echo awaking Arana.
There's much for us to do.
That's it.
It's not the worst game I played. I mean, the combat was fun and the platforming was okay. But that's about it. I mean, come on, the visuals were bland, the music was forgettable, and the story, well, it was something. Against my better judgment, I would like to see where the story was going, as long as it had Stone in it.
Party time!
Hey everybody, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. Maybe even share it with some friends. If you want to get updated on when our new videos come out, just hit that subscribe button down below. And if you're in the mood for some more videos, you can check out our latest videos like our top 10 GameCube games or my review of Blinx the Time Sweeper. Thanks for watching, and game on.